Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been a day. All right. Tax day. It's been taxing. All right, trading time for money. That's called a job. When these individuals, we're not talking about slavery, we're talking about people that are coming here voluntarily and working for a wage. And that is a competitive process. Now, what they're competing with is they are now competing with robots and drones. Now, it was a few years ago, I remember seeing the protest outside about demanding $15 per hour. And I thought, I'll bet that's being funded by the manufacturers of kiosks. Now, I don't know for sure, but sure enough, a lot of people became unemployed and a lot of kiosks went in their place. You know what the minimum wage for a kiosk is? $0. $0. So if you really want to accelerate the mechanization of farm work, you're on the right track by rejecting this bill. Farming's easy when you're 1,000 miles away and your pen is a plow. Can't remember who said that, but it makes a lot of sense. Farming from Denver, telling the ranchers and farmers how that works, the same group of people that sick wolves on the farmers cause them to have to work longer. Those farmers and ranchers who sacrifice their bodies, their time, their families, their freedom for the exact same stuff. What is your reward to the farmers, ranchers? Your reward is to punish them harder. So voting no is just going to, voting against this bill is just going to accelerate the obsolescence of the people that you've brought in to be exploitable and expendable. So here's some things that you could do. You could tax them less. You could incentivize higher wages with tax incentives. You don't do that. We have farmers and ranchers that are having to indenture parts of their land with easements in order to keep the land, hopefully until some sanity returns in the fee state, Colorado. And ranchers and farmers, they're having to sell their water where they can't even grow anything. I don't know, how many workers do you need to pick a crop that doesn't grow? 1, 2, none? Sweep up the dust? What? I mean, voting no is working against the people that you're saying you want to help. Just looking at some basic math of this, let's just say 4 months, 16 weeks is harvest season, right? It's nothing exact. 56 hours, if you had to hire somebody, you could say 56 hours. And that's what it's going to take. Times 16, that's 896. 896 hours that they could work in that 4 months. Now, if you limit it to 40 hours, times 16, that's 640. So now if the rancher, if the farmer needs 896 hours, because one thing that has been missed, I think, is it's been touched on just in a different way, is that past 40 hours is a time of fatigue. You get tired. You don't work as well. You are more prone to injury. There's more risk. So if a farmer is going to allow somebody to work for over 40 hours, they are incurring a level of risk and a level of decreased productivity. So if they have a worker who wants to work past 40 hours, that farmer has to say, I am willing to accept a decreased level of productivity in order to keep you on. So is that worker's labor then worth time and a half? Well, the actuality is you would have to multiply it by that value of that labor. You would have to multiply it by some degraded factor, because none of the opposition to this bill has given any indication that if you go past 40 hours in a week, that suddenly your productivity increases. So the farmer has to accept an increased risk and decrease in productivity to hire over. But let's say he needs that 896 hours. Gotta have it. Because this is, I don't know, I think maybe we should call it the make hay while the sun shines bill, right? That you don't have, it's seasonal, right? And if you're limited in that 16 weeks to 40 hours, now you have to hire 2 workers to get that. But all you need is 896 hours. I'm just saying you only need 896 hours. So now you need 2 workers, and that is only 448 hours per worker, which only comes down to 28 hours per week. So you have people that have come, that have relocated, and this is not uncommon in the United States. We have, well, soldiers, they'll deploy for 6 months. They don't make time and a half. They sacrifice their time, their family. I don't hear anybody asking for time and a half for the soldiers. Or saying, well, why don't we just cut taxes for, no income, no. They don't get time and a half. Now, for these farmers, you could incentivize hiring longer or more wages, and you could make a tax incentive out of that where they pay less taxes. I'm sure every single farmer would make the trade to pay less taxes and more wages. Why is that never an option? The only option is more taxes. So what you're saying, what you're doing to the individuals is you're saying, all right, you're going to have to come up here for 448 hours. You're going to get 28 hours per week because that's all you can be hired. If you go past 40 hours, you're an increased liability and your productivity decreases. It's not personal. It's just a fact. So you're incentivizing more bodies being brought in, less wages earned, less money going back to their families. And what are they going to be doing for those extra hours, those extra 200 hours? They're going to go down the street and pick up a job at the other farm. And then that farmer will have that rancher, they'll just have trucks going back and forth so they can work 8 hours here and 8 hours there. Because they're here to work and make money. They're trading time and money on a voluntary basis. That's what makes the free market work. They're engaging in the free market. What you're objecting to is compelled labor, which is ironic on tax day, which doesn't even meet tax liberation day. And you're worried about compelled labor. Well, compelling labor and trying to figure out ways to compel more labor. Yet the individuals that are working in a free market system to trade their time and money, their time for money, because the only other thing that they're going to have to do for that 200 hours, and we saw this 28 hours, that's what Obama made full-time wages in order to have health care. What did everybody do? Everybody cut their hours down to 28 hours. It's just kind of funny how that works. So they cut their wages down to 28 hours where they didn't have health care. So what did the people have to do? Well, they didn't have health care. They had to go get another job where they also didn't have health care. And the price for health care skyrocketed. And that's lauded as some big success. It's the same economic principles. fees for feels does not work. It does not work. You are working against the individuals that you're trying to help. You're actually working against the individuals that you're trying to help. They have the opportunity. They can work someplace else. If they're mistreated, nobody should be mistreated. Nobody should be mistreated. I mean, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Our colleague mentioned that, how did his family treat it? They did unto others. They got out there and worked in that field all day long. You're basically looking at cutting their hours, their wages, and their incentive in half. I'm not sure how that's good for them. If you want to give them more leverage, if you want to help the farmers, cut their taxes. That doesn't seem to be a consideration ever. If you want to help these individuals, make sure that they have a protected status. Traffickers take away documents. You look at any other country, friends from Africa, worked in other countries, what's the first thing they do? Take away their documents so that they have no recourse and no escape. So you want to help the individuals, make sure they're documented. And we already have programs for that. But human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar organization. So stop hurting these people by trying to, look at the actual thing that you're doing. What you're actually doing is you're cutting their labor, you're cutting their wages in half. You're going to send them home empty-handed. Let them make hay while the sun shines. You know, you could do something, I suppose, the easy thing to do would be to say, well, 40 hours times 50, if you wanted to try to treat it like a more 9-to-5 job, 40 hours a week times 50 weeks would be 2,000 hours. 6 months would be 1,000 hours, 200, and you just say, well, it's 1,000 hours over 6 months, and then it would be overtime. So, again, let's not lose track. Let's actually help these people. Let's make their work worthwhile, send them home with more wages in their pockets. I ask for a yes vote on the bill.